Hi, I'm George Pearson, and this is a tutorial video for Adobe's Photoshop program. You'll find links in the description for any materials used in this video, and of course don't forget to subscribe, like, and also share the video. I really appreciate that. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the video. This is a special video on how to do masking around hair like this in earlier versions of Photoshop. This is Photoshop CS4. Now, here's my original, and then here's the new version with a new background. There's the background right there, and it's nicely masked around the hair over here on the right hand side. So this is how you can do that, the kind of masking. Now, to be perfectly honest about this, if you're going to be doing a lot of hair masking like this, then you really need a newer version of Photoshop. You know, Photoshop CS4, you can do it kind of. I'll show you how you can do it kind of, but it's not the best solution. The best solution is a newer version, at least Photoshop CS6, if not later than that, but at least Photoshop CS6 to get the improvements in the Refine Edge tool. And those improvements can give all this nice little wispy stuff in here that we can't do in this video. So, best technique, later version of Photoshop. If you can't do that, then I'll show you how we can get close to that. So we're going to be going for this final output and starting with this picture. Let me just hide that background there. There we go. Now, to do this, we want to make a mask that's going to show just the image, and then we want to be able to refine that mask to bring it in as close to our hair shapes as we can, and then clean up that mask. It's kind of a three-step process. Starting off, I'm going to zoom in over here, way down here, bottom left-hand corner. Out just a touch. There we are. That's good enough. Now you want to have a real nice, careful selection as much as you can on this. So take your time on this. Don't use your fast select tools. That's these guys. Go ahead and take the time and use the polygonal lasso tool, my personal favorite on this. Make sure you're up here and you're on the new selection button right there in the options. And then I'll start off at the bottom corner, right there. Now the nice thing about this tool is that you simply click points and then Photoshop fills in the lines between the points. The trick to using this tool is to do short sections, take your time with it, and don't click too quickly. If you click too quickly, then Photoshop is going to collapse the selection and you'll have to redo it. So take your time, breathe deeply while you're doing this, don't rush it, and you'll be okay. Now when you get up here to the edge, we are right there, hold the space bar down. You can then move the window, let go of the space bar, and you're back on your tool again. So it allows you to move the image around. So I'm just going to take my time and work around the edge here. Now again, I can't get that real subtle stuff. This technique will not do that for me. A later version of Photoshop would. So again, my best recommendation is a later version of Photoshop. But again, we'll do the best that we can here with what we have to work with. Okay, so that real soft stuff back there, I can't do anything about that. I'll just forget about that. Let's pull this down. Okay, we're at the top of our window now. Now we're up to a part that I can possibly get. There's enough stuff in here. We'll see how much of this we can get in. We may lose a bit of it, but we'll see how much we can keep. So I'm just kind of coming out just a little bit. Now I get to the top up here, I can actually click outside and then pull it clear across. Now if you go outside like that, the window will automatically scroll for you. So there's the other side. You can see there's my control line right there. And I'll click in and I'll come back around in here. Now again, I can't get that real thin wispy stuff. Just have to ignore that. But we'll try to get this curve in here. And we'll try to get these curves in nicely. Now notice I'm not right against these curves. We'll be using the Refined Edge tool to tighten this in. And that's where the later versions of Photoshop are great because they have a brush on the Refined Edge so you can actually brush over the parts you want to have Photoshop re-examine. And it does a great job of that. Okay, I'll hold the spacebar down, pull the window up, and then we'll continue on down. Now once I do this, I'm going to come back and I'll do a little bit more cleanup on this selection before we finish this thing off. There's an area between her arm and her body where there's an open space. I want to take care of that. Okay, we'll just push this up a bit more. And again, I'm ignoring that wispy stuff. I cannot grab that with Photoshop CS4. But we can get enough that it's going to make a good picture. Okay, coming down right towards the end down here. Come just off the bottom and I'll click outside and then pull to the left-hand side. Up in the ruler up there, it's going to automatically scroll to the left. I'll let it scroll back to the beginning. And then once we see the beginning of our line, we can then end this selection. And there we go. There it is. So let's come to the beginning right there. And that finishes off that selection for us. Now I want to remove this bit in here from that selection. So let's change our option up here to the subtract from selection option. And starting right up here by her cheek, I'll just come in and we'll subtract out this little bit inside. Now it's important to do a good job on this part of the selection. You can be a little bit looser again on this part if you're using a later version of Photoshop, because the Refine Edge will take care of a lot of that for you. We're going to be doing kind of a little cheat trick here to make this work, so we have to be careful and take the time to do a good selection. It all depends on the quality of your selection in here. Make sure you don't click too fast or you'll collapse things and have to start all over again. We don't want to do that. Okay, this almost finished, and our beginning point, there we go. I've now subtracted that. Okay, let's zoom out. Hold the Alt key down, zoom out. There's that selection. I'm now going to save this selection. This is an important part of this step. Save your selection. And that's select, save selection. And I already have one in here from my demo that I did, so I can show you the end. So let's give this one a new name. I'll call this one Girl 2. That's my selection. There we go. So it's now saved. Now that you have that, leave your selection going. Come down here and click on this little button right there. This is the Add Layer Mask button. Or go up to Layer, and you can add a layer mask in here as well. So let's do it. Little button right there, and make sure on my layer, there it is. And what that does is it gives me a layer mask. There it is. Now notice that it masks out all of that stuff. It looks good along here because we had hard edges. It's fine up in here. Around the hair, it's not so good. And that's what we're going to be fixing. Now, as we make the adjustments here, the problem with the Refine Edge tool inside of Photoshop CS4 earlier is that it does the whole image. You can't tell it which part you want to refine. That's the improvement in later versions of Photoshop, at least Photoshop CS6. I could then, with that tool, I could come in here and say, refine this edge right here, leave that alone. This tool won't do that. We'll be refining this. It's also going to be messing up the stuff over here. And you'll see why we saved our selection in just a little bit on that. Okay, so here we go. There's our selection. It's looking okay. Let's now improve that. Select, Refine Edge. Here's the Refine Edge dialog box. Now normally these are way down here someplace, kind of like this. Ignore the stuff down here. It doesn't really matter. This will be at the 0 point right there. Now we have options. We can do a radius adjustment, contrast adjustment. You can smooth the edge out or feather the edge. I'll leave those out there defaults. You can change the background this is sitting on if you want to, and choose whatever works out well for you. The default is the white. Now, ignore this side over here except for that bit right there. So ignore that and pay attention to the hair over here right hand side. This is what we're caring about in here. If I take this tool and if I pull the radius up, you'll see as I do this, this begins to collapse in tighter onto that hair. And if I come out too far, you begin to see a bit more stuff happening, kind of fuzzes out. But it's actually collapsed in a lot. Now if I increase my contrast, I can get rid of that fuzziness aspect. And it really begins to come in tight along the edge of that hair. And that's what I want to see. You'll find a point at which it's not really doing anything any longer. And that's about as far as you want to go. If you watch right down in here, it'll get just a little bit soft and then it stops that happening. It kind of stops working when you get, in this case, about 74%. That's about as far as that goes. But that really brings it in tight on the hair, and about as tight as this will do. This is about as good as you can do at this point. There's still something else which we can do. Now on this, I can pull this to the contract a little bit and actually pull the selection in a little bit further, real small amount, and that just brings it in even tighter on that side. So we're looking pretty good now on that side, or even pretty good over here. Kind of messed up here. It's not too bad up here either. So that's looking pretty good. It's not so good over in here. We kind of lost a bit of our effect on that. We'll see how to fix that in a second. Okay, so that took care of that part of it. That's as far as we can go with the Refine Mask tool. As it says Refine Mask on here and not Refine Edge. That's because I used the selection to make the mask, and then this becomes a Refine Mask. Same controls though. If I had just left the selection, I could have used this and would say Refine Selection up here. But it's the exact same tool, either a selection or a mask. I like using it on the mask. Choose OK. And there we are, looking pretty good. We'll need to fix this over here. This is going to have to be done manually. Left-hand side, let's now see where we are on this side. Click over here on the image on the layer. Notice if I click on this little white line around it, let you know which one you're on. Make sure you're on the layer itself. And then come up here to Select. Let's load selection. I'll load the one that we saved, which was Girl 2. Choose OK. There's the selection. If you look carefully, it's a little bit further outside than we now have because we contracted our mask, so that has left that a little bit outside. So we'll fix that now. So back to our mask. Notice on this that the white area is what's showing our image. The black area out here is hiding the image. So white shows, black hides. I want to show a little more of our image along here on these hard edges. So let's change our colors to white. Grab the paintbrush. Let's adjust the size up a bit. And that's pretty good. In this case, 59. And I'll stay away from the hair. And then I'll just come in here and paint on the mask with white. And that's going to show that image back up again against that selection. So it's going to expand my selection back out again. Let me bring my opacity up. Here we go. Full opacity, and that's going to be a bit better. That's more what I wanted right there. A little hard to see because it's not that much of a thickness in there, but there's enough. So this is just removing that little bit of a contraction that we did and doing it just around the parts that I want to have a harder edge on my selection. There we go. So it kind of cleaned up and repaired this bit. On this side, I'm going to leave that as is. That's all fine. Okay, let's now deselect that. There we go. Looking better. That looks just fine. You know, it was a soft edge because it was a bit out of focus at that point, so that's exactly what I want over there. We'll adjust our coloration in a final step. Now, on this, I can bring this in even further, and even closer to this edge in here by doing a little bit more work on the mask. I'll have to go back and forth a little bit on this to make this work. We're kind of cheating this thing here. So make sure you're on the mask, and I'll now do a layer adjustment on there, image adjustment rather. Image adjust levels right there. So image adjustments levels, and I'm on the black and white mask. That's why there's no color in here. There's nothing in the histogram. There's black and there's white. So take your middle tone, the gray tone, move this clear to the right hand side. Now watch the edge up in here as I do that. I'll pull it over and then I'll pull it in. Notice how it collapses that in even further. You look at the hair up here. As I pull that in, actually collapses it past the hair. It still leaves the hair up there, but it has collapsed it past the hair. So this has improved our mask even just a little bit more. It's not a lot, but it's a bit. And every little bit helps. Choose OK. We're getting a lot closer, but we still have some problems. There's a lot of sky showing through here. It's not too good up there. We're OK on the left-hand side. That's fine. I think we're done there. In here, could use a little bit, and down here. Now this part has to be handled manually. So I'm going to zoom in on this stuff. We're going to actually paint onto the mat using our different colors here. Again, black hides and white shows. So let's grab our paintbrush, look at our brush size, that's too big. Bring the brush size down quite a bit, way down to about 15. Might be a bit too small. A little bit here, 21. I'm just looking at the brush. There's the brush, looking at it up here. I don't want to go too small on that. That's pretty good. 34 looks pretty good. 0% hardness. Let's now zoom in. And we're going to do a little bit of cleanup in here. Back to our paintbrush. Bring the opacity way down to about 25 or so. And there's the brush. Now I'm just going to begin coming in here and brushing. Now I want to change it to black, so I'm painting with black. And the reason I went down on the opacity is I can just kind of edge in here and just do several passes on this to make this work. So each time I click and drag, it adds a little bit more to that. And I'll overlap into the hair a little bit. And I'm trying to get rid of that whiteness that we're seeing there. Now it's a real soft edge. I could bring that edge down, make it a little bit harder if I removed a little bit of the softness on our brush. Let's just, where the hardness are, I'll bring it to about 20% and make that a little bit of a harder edge. That's pretty good. Now those settings are going to depend upon the size of your image. And now it's just a matter of taking the time and coming back in here and carefully kind of edging in on this thing to tone down that white effect and leave just a little bit. You can leave a little bit of the white, that's okay. We'll want to get rid of the white effect. There we are. And a little bit up here, soften the edge down, and a little bit in there. Notice with this technique of coming in here with a fairly transparent brush, you still see some of the hair in there. You still get some of that hair effect, and I wanted to keep that. Okay, we'll come down, I'll do a little bit along the edge, just help to soften that edge up, blend that edge into the background. Luckily, hair tends to be soft. It tends to be fairly transparent on the edges, so you can do this and get away with it. So I'm just fading it out a little bit into the background, and that blends that in. Now in here, to come in a little bit tighter, and just knock away a little bit of that. And again, on the outer edges, coming down, just softening up those edges just a little bit, and a little bit right in there, not much. And right down in here. Just a few little taps in there to help us see through that area. And again on the outside, just to help blend that in, get rid of that highlight around the outside edge. There we go. And moving on down, a little bit right in there. And again, more on the outside edge just to soften that edge up. And I'll continue on down, almost done with this one. And there are a few more little things to do. Now down here, there's this white. I need to really make sure I get rid of that white. That really kind of gives the whole game away there. There we go. Okay, let's now zoom out. Back to the Alt key. Hold the Alt key down. We'll zoom out. And the hair looks pretty good now. But as you saw, it took a few different techniques to get into that. And then we had to actually paint on the mat to clean that final bit up. Now it looks like it may not be fixed in here, but that's actually the sky in the background. If I show that, it's a light sky right there, so that actually is correct. So that's working out fine. Okay, now zoom out just a little bit. The next thing to do is I want to make sure that the image looks like it's part of the background. Notice how rich it is over here. It's kind of washed out and faded out in here. So we need to adjust the image now to blend in with the background. So I'll do that with an adjustment layer, adjustment layer, levels, and where it says use previous layer to create clipping mask, click on that. Make sure that's checked and choose OK. That then links the adjustment to just this image here, just the one layer. Because I don't want this affecting the background. I only want it affecting this layer. Now I can bring my darks up, darken her down a little bit like that. I can adjust my midtones and just kind of visually looking at the quality in here, the values, and matching that to the quality of our values over there and trying to get a pretty good match. We can maybe tone down the whites just a little bit in here. Not much. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good match now for the background. If she's out in the sun and that's in the background, I think we're pretty good at that. Now the last little bit here is this sleeve is kind of faded out. So let's darken down the sleeve, and we can do that. Let me just hide these adjustments, double click on that, hide that. Come back down to the image. So we're on our image again. And let's go over here and grab the burn tool. Look at our midtones. I have my exposure down pretty low, down to 20%, and pretty good size brush, 116 pixels. And I'm just going to come in here and just kind of brush over this a little bit. And that darkens down the tones in there, and that helps to bring that area that was kind of light, it brings it back into the same values as everything else in here. Again, don't go too far on this stuff or it begins to look fake. So just take your time and keep it as subtle as you can. It's a little soft maybe in here still. You can adjust it if you want to. Go over here to this tool. This is the sharpen tool. I have mine set at 50% strength. And this increases the contrast, the edge contrast on pixels. Be very careful with this tool. It's easy to go too far on this. Just a few little taps in there just to kind of sharpen that up. And there we go. So we have our hair masking in here with this, fancy curly hair. We can actually see the background now through the hair. Everything else looks pretty good. So there's the background. There's our girl masked on top. And you saw that the whole technique is really using that refined edge to clean the hair up with a couple of tricks on that, and then adjusting our contrast of our mask as well. Going back to our selection that we had to clean up this edge and fix the edge again, and then adjust our values, and of course coming in here and hand painting in on the mask for a little bit of the final touches in the parts where you can see through the hair, the little insides of the loops. But there it is. So as you can see, you can do this kind of hair masking inside of Photoshop CS4 and earlier. It's just not that easy. And my recommendation, as always, is if you can, get a later version of Photoshop. Go for Photoshop CS6 at least. There's a great tool in there that would make this job just a breeze. But without that tool, you can do that, and here we go. That's how it's done. So there's hair masking with a new background in Photoshop CS4. Thank you for watching this special Photoshop photography project video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you will get first notice of new project videos in the future. Just click on this link right here where it says subscribe here. You can get all 12 project videos in this series along with 26 special videos demonstrating the tools and techniques that I used in these projects by clicking on this link right down here. And then thank you again for watching this